I want to speak on a subject that I've seen going around Book Talk and Instagram and everywhere for a very long time now. The most common example of this is The Author Who Must Not Be Named, and that is separating the art from the artist. A lot of people, when an author does something, or any artist or creator, or anyone really, does something distasteful or terrible or holds views that go against decency and morals, you can't separate the art from the artist. And I want to share my own personal story about not being able to separate the art from the artist and about what a creator's actions did that impacted me. And it's going to sound a little bit dramatic, but this is really what I did. I had an author who I idolized growing up. I was a fan of this author, and ultimately him and his wife, because they were a husband-wife duo, though he was more well-known. I was a fan of them from middle school until just a few years ago. That's David Eddings. David and Lee Eddings. This is the first David Eddings book that I ever got. This book is so old, you can see where I signed in my middle school handwriting. I put my middle school number. I loved David Eddings. I own every single book that this monster has ever published. I went to the archives in Oregon to see all of his stuff. I've read some of his unpublished works. I corrected the way they had things filed because I know so much about his work. I knew that they had one book in the wrong folder. I could identify it immediately, 3 words in. This man, his work changed my life. I did not have the best childhood. I will not go into details on this because that's not the point, but I had a pretty rough childhood. I had some very dark times. These books got me through it. These books made my childhood bearable. These books made me want to be an author. I wanted to write because of this man. This man was my hero. Unfortunately, She Who Must Not Be Named was also my hero at one point in time too. I haven't had a lot of heroes since. And when I found out that this man and his wife committed horrific acts against their adopted children decades before I was born, it sent me into a spiral. I'm sure some of you are going to say to me, what does it matter? They're dead now. Just enjoy the book. I can't. This man got me through my childhood after he ruined the childhood or childhoods. I'm still not entirely certain if it was one or more children of others. I can't. When I finally, years after his death, because no one reported on it and everyone just still hailed him as a hero, when I found out what he did, it sent me into a tailspin. So much of who I am came from these books. There are whole parts of my personality, of my things that are important to me, of what I want, that grew and evolved out of these books. It was awful. I locked all of his books in a box in the garage because I couldn't bear to get rid of my childhood mementos. But I was so ashamed that I idolized this monster for years. And I know some of you are probably thinking, hey, don't make a book your identity. Who cares what house you're in? Here's the thing. The media that we consume forms and shapes us. Our tastes, our dreams, our hopes, our fears, that can come from the media we consume. When you're a child, you are shaped and molded by what you see. And what I saw was a facade put up by a monster. I've read my favorite character of all time, my fictional hero, Polgara the Sorceress, was created based off of his wife. And when I was younger, I loved her. I idolized her too. And then I found out his wife was the main monster. And he created Polgara as kind of a way of making amends. And it wrecked me. I cried. I sobbed. It it threw me into a tailspin. I was like, who am I now? I have always been this person who loves David Eddings. I've always been this person who wanted to be an author, a writer, a creator because of how much I loved this work. I wrote a letter to him after his wife died in 2008 when I was still in high school. And now I'm ashamed. Like, there's a whole piece of me that I'm ashamed of. And you know what? I'm ashamed of my house too. I'm ashamed of loving She Who Must Not Be Named. I know that I couldn't have known. Just like the other people who are hurt couldn't have known. And She Who Must Not Be Named hurt others even more than me, more than David Eddings hurt me, because she actively denies their humanity. She denies who they are. And I hate that it's controversial to say this. You cannot separate the art from the artist. At least not until they're dead, not profiting off of it. And even then, it hurts. Like, this person was a monster. This person hurt children while I was being hurt. And he made me feel safe when all along he wasn't safe. She made people feel seen, like they could come out of the cupboard from under the stairs. And then it turns out all along, she's a monster too. I don't think it's possible to separate the art from the artist. And honestly, the people who say just separate the art from the artist, it's fine, I feel like that's kind of a privilege. It's kind of a privilege, especially with She Who Must Not Be Named. It's easy for me to say it. I'm not one of the people she hates. It's easy for me to just say, I'm just going to keep buying all of her stuff. I'm going to support her. She's not hurting me, but she's hurting other people. David Eddings hurt other people. And if you can't separate the art from the artist, I think that's okay. I think that's the right reaction to have. Overall, it's sad. It's sad when you find out that a hero isn't a hero and was actually the villain all along. That's all I really have to say on the topic. I will not separate the art from the artist, and I'm going to continue to do my best not to give money to people whose morals don't match mine. And honestly, I kind of hope you do the same thing too.